billion. One of our newspapers, the City Press, used Paya to get all of the information relating to Nkandla. Fairly, the public could exercise social accountability because there was access to information in that portal that the City Press and Amabungane had created. You need a functional and overall accountability framework. Social accountability is about me and you holding public representatives accountable. Me as an individual, me and you acting to remove the current president. So a journalist asked that question, and somebody sent her a photograph of a gun, and so the rest of the system works because the moment she then put that information on Twitter. And as soon as she put that on Twitter, SANEF, which is the South African National Editors Forum, issued a statement to say it helps when the rest of the system, technological developments. One of the greatest advances that we have today that are enhancing social accountability is technology. In fact, technology is taking us back to the village. It's creating a global village because in the village, everyone knew what was happening. It was a small place where we know I've been a victim of that, people calling me a spy and even creating fake spy IDs for me from the CIA. But I would say, despite its dangers, the social media is good because you can also call people to order through social media. In my case, for example, it was nice that they did this on social media because people could see, oh, head for that day. So, but again, it helps because if it's in the media, sunshine is the best medicine because it allows you to be able to evaluate fake news from real news. Technological development, but technological development is also going to be able, beyond just the general monitoring. Technological development is also going to help us with social weight through using algorithms, how that new policy is likely to impact on everyone, how that policy is likely to reduce poverty and inequality or expand poverty and equality. And that's something that our method and purpose-driven leadership in government. I mean, if you have presidents like a president of one country that I'm not going to mention, that is very averse to criticism, social accountability becomes a career-limiting initiative if you're in business, for example, because the moment you criticize the people in government, they look at you and say you criticize, and then they look at withdrawing, an authority and the Israeli authority. So you need mature leaders on the steering wheel who are not going to take a criticism as an insult. You need an incentive structure. It helps to have an incentive structure for those in government because often when we think about social accountability, we think about how do we find the corrupt and jail idle. So that's social accountability again, finding the ones who are doing what they're supposed to do, and you stay with the partnership because you being ethical, staying purpose driven, aware of your own impact, and having a clear commitment to serve the community that you're trying to serve. And as may be the case in your own countries, democracy is under strain. On the 15th of this month, we will be commemorating International Democracy Day. Your event is accordingly timely because it's an opportunity to reflect on opportunities for strengthening democracy through social accountability. Ultimately, demos is how do we save democracy? By making sure that democracy works effectively. Of democracy in trouble being social justice, integrity, and a public service that.
Thank you very much, Prof. Madonsela. I think you'd agree with me that that was certainly an inspiring speech, and And I think we learned a lot, even for the craft a way forward together, and in particular what the 3 C's, I think I reflected on them as being the 3 C's, what they mean in terms of threats to democracy. So this particularly excited to hear about the Chinese imbongi, and I think a lot of the people in this space do exactly that in their various organizations and in the countries in which they work, is to highlight the things that aren't working as they should, in a way that is in itself full of integrity. And thank you for taking us through the various countries as well. I think that was great. So what we're going to touch this mic without causing destruction, and I think Prof can answer from where she sits. So we'll go around the room, open up the floor. Sia has a mic at the back. Let's take the first 4 questions, one after the other, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so we'll start at the back. There's a person in room.
Thank you so much. Okay. I'm just interested. I kept on thinking about the state capture commission that is going on now, which you really played a role in. People in the country have really lost trust on systems and on government being punished, and we have seen the commission set after the Marikana massacre. We have seen the life as demanding. No one found. We had a very track record looking at it that way, where we see people being punished, people being money, and we know that role politics play in commissions. When they get politicized, they get prolonged indefinitely. By the time this commission will be done, we have forgotten in another new law and get forgotten about. I just want to find out, is that possible to actually punish people while the commission is going on?
Right. Oh, was I supposed to do that? So, okay, thank you. Hello? 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 Hello?
Oh, it's for the camera, but can everyone else?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, we didn't actually explain that.
It's okay. Well, thank you for that question to my colleague from Corruption Watch. Right. Should we have a forensic process? Well, the missing link in my presentation, there were 2 slides that I somehow jumped. The one was another reason democracy is in trouble is economic stagnation. Because for a democracy, we talk about shared prosperity, but that means shared and prosperity. So social justice in the context of no food, sharing no food among ourselves is not very helpful. So that was one slide. The other slide was the final slide, was that with all of these things working against us, we have a hypocrisy. A lot of people came across us when we were at the Pub Protector event, when we were at the first event of the Turma Foundation, people were saying, we don't want democracy, we ask for freedom, we want our freedom back. To everyone enjoying all human rights and our own constitutions in our country. And of course, that trust translates into lack of forensic unit. So we only see what's happening. But you're saying, as the commission moves, should there be other investigations? They are. The Hawks are investigating. The police are investigating. The Pub Protector is in capture one institution, but you can't capture all. But in the age of capture, in the age of corruption, in the age of clientelism, that's where you need social accountability, because you need issue of corruption. There are parallel investigations that are taking place. My only concern is we won't get the money back. But it's not the fault of the commission, it's the fault of the government, because it took forever to move. Those of you who are involved in policing, they say the first rule when you are policing is site control, to control the crime scene. Have you seen when somebody's dead, they immediately put those markers, those stickers, tapes to say no. You'll ask questions later. If someone and collect bank statements, collect cell phone records, do triangulation of people's movement.
Good morning, everyone. I have two questions. They might come across as lengthy, but I'm just trying to articulate them very well. So the first one is regarding the comment you made around the campaign for White Monopoly Capital. And I wanted to just clarify whether I'm understanding that point clearly, because we know that in this country, the wealth and capital concentration still remains largely particular. Or if what you're saying is that if you wouldn't term that phenomenon white monopoly capital, then what would you call it? And then the second point is around reimagining democracy. Recently, I just came back from the Rethinking Economics for Africa festival, throwing away some good qualities and trying to say, a system that's been there, but rather that we should be throwing out the baby, because often the baby, which is something that represents long-standing sort of concepts and aspects of a theory or of a process that have been benefiting citizenship in this country in the same way. So what are some of the key areas of disrupting democracy that you would say are the aspects that you need to be looking into the system?
Thank you. Oh, should I? Okay, let me just answer those two questions. Thank you for those questions. You're from education, equal education, you said, yes. The first question, the colleague from equal education was about state capture. Am I rejecting the concept, or am I rejecting the campaign? I'm rejecting the campaign, because the campaign was a dead cat. A dead cat is dead. Be concerned about the dead cat at a different space. But the dead cat strategy is not meant to really start a serious conversation about the dead cat. A dead cat strategy is a strategy. It's lose sight of what they were talking. And what happened here is, as soon as Public Protector of South Africa started the investigation on state capture in March last year, Andile Mngxitama from Black First, Land First, started saying the problem people in this country, and through also reconsider. This is low-lying fruit, and based on Paul asking me and promising me that it was low-lying fruit, I investigated, I completed it. No other investigation was done beyond the one I did. It was a difference of different conclusions being reached by my successor versus the conclusion I reached, which is dysfunctional today because there's a disjuncture between democracy and monopoly capital. But after the fall of communism, we failed to rein in capitalism, because democracies were able to rein in capitalism at some stage because there was a real threat of communism. And as soon as the Iron Curtain fell and the Berlin Wall fell, not a pyramid. You know how a pyramid is shaped, It's sort of fattish in the middle and, of course, bulky. Now you have, somebody has to still tell us, because it's something so tiny now, where even the middle class has been whittled down, and the rich have become obscenely rich. And it doesn't matter whether they're black or white. It is wrong. Expropriate land without compensation. That's still another dead cat, because you're promising everyone who's poor that if we expropriate a few farms under restrained conditions from farmers, your life is going to be improved. When there's 7% in urban, 1.2% in rural areas. The narrow approach, the extremist approaches are never meant to solve the problem. They are about exploiting divisions in society. But also, my dear colleagues, I did say the fissures with you who have been involved in debt. If in paying your debt you pay little amounts, the debt doesn't go down. If anything, that's what has happened with social injustice in South Africa. It's not that we haven't made efforts to try and reduce inequality and poverty. We've made insignificant changes to the problem. And then the capital debt has then long changed the course we're going into. Democracy is in crisis and peace is going up in smoke with democracy. And the second question dear colleague asked was, we will always need a system where all of us have a say. How we articulate it, they found happening in Ethiopia and other parts of Northern Africa. So yes, in terms of the water is dirty and the baby is clean. So in this case, I think what has been poisoned actually is our baby, which is democracy, whatever you want to call it, but a system where in the Western world stop regurgitating Dicey and all of this, Plato, Aristotle, etc. They did great because they studied the invent for our time. So in other words, I'm not saying throw away Aristotle, throw away Fanon dramatically in our time. Let's have our own new Marxes, our own new Fanons. Let's have new African philosophers that will quote, who are talking about their time. If you think about Machiavelli, I like about Machiavelli because he was a civil servant. He was talking about...
My name is Lilian Matsika. I'm coming from Zimbabwe and from an organization called Diakoni. Those who are in line with the councillors of a certain party, they will not interrogate. And those who are on the opposite side, they are just stating that they are opposing because they are in opposition. And you also find even the officials themselves. It has been very difficult in implementing proper social accountability. So my question is just, how do you operate in such an environment where you find the society is polarized from the grassroots to the executives? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lilian Matsika. A polarized society is one of the impediments, of course, to both a functional democracy and effective social accountability. You can get a limited amount of social accountability, but you can't bring everyone on board. Political leaders appeal to racial cleavages to divide and conquer, and some of them will even exploit tribal cleavages, age cleavages, and even gender cleavages to divide and conquer. But ultimately, it is those three C's that are the core. Service better communities that vote for them. That's clientelism, because you're not supposed to send services to the community based on who voted for you and who's likely to vote for you. Services are not a reward for voting for politicians. Once a politician has been elected, they pay fewer levies and things like that. Everyone pays tax and everyone deserves to be served. But they do exploit that. So the question is, and then creates cleavages in society again, because people can see the disparities, they can see the unfairness in the way things are done. Civil society itself is divided by not just the shrinking political space, it's also divided by the feeling that they're wishing each other. No, that one is not doing right. Because it's all about looking at, there isn't enough, there's a poverty mentality, there isn't enough space for all of us. If I rubbish this group, then I will get into the party. And then the question is, despite all of this, how can we work together to organize social accountability? I would say, for me, choosing funds with the hope that those funds are going to service to the people. And you set yourself up as a group that will monitor the extent to which there's a match between the communicated intentions, the communicated amounts, and the actual. Working with government to plan more effectively so it's sort of fiscal discipline and fiscal competence. So you don't think ultimately any government wants to pay, for example, leveraging your eyes and ears, or the community eyes and ears, to see what's happening on the ground. You're actually helping government, because often they really don't know what's happening. I remember Premier Magashule, the books were showing this number of RDP houses built, the people were complaining, and eventually had to dispatch 18 to go there to count. If you had social, the new government won fairly or didn't win fairly, the truth is it is the new government. And bring it to the people to know what has the president said. So that's just the training at this stage. It's not rubbishing him, it's just saying what is the promise. And that becomes an area of work. And then strike a deal about monitoring whether the people he relies on to deliver on the ground are actually answering the call. And light is stronger than darkness. But many candles together are formidable against the dark. And working together is like Ethiopia. It's really doing what we were supposed to have done. And Zimbabwe, actually, you should do yours now, your M plan. It's a recovery plan that's looking at how do you make everyone's life better. Because nobody is going to want to be part of a family if membership of that family means pain for them and happiness for the rest of the family. So an M plan for social justice is about looking at civil society, that even though society is impoverished, there are degrees of impoverishment. How does civil society now bring whatever poverty by 2030? So we can sit there and complain that we're not feeling the NDP on the ground, or we can do, as Stellenbosch and the Tuma Foundation are doing, go to the ground and make them feel the NDP by helping them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and then look for social investment partners to meet them halfway. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Just so that was the first round. I'm mindful of our time, and Abby has already given the mic to someone at the back. There's a person at the back next to Sia. There was another hand here. Is your question still like to? Okay, so we'll go from there to this row here. Number 3 at the front row here. Okay, so we've got 3 questions, one after the other, but perhaps we'll do the same format as before.
I work for an organization called the Southern African Parliamentary Support Trust. I'll try to be precise. Do research, provide evidence-based research, with recommendations, conclusions, but there is perception. The public perception is that the institution, so that's public perception. Right? So generally there is inertia. There is no willingness by the public to engage policymakers. I've seen it in many believe that policymakers will make a difference. Right. And so then you spoke about the other form of enforcing accountability, which you sort of like implied that it is the last resort. It clamped down on such forms of exacting accountability. So you just shoot about 2-3 people, then no one is prepared to engage in that kind of situation. Thank you.
Are you happy to take the next talk?
Yes.
Thank you and good morning all. My name is Barwani Mshale from Twaweza, East Africa in Tanzania. My question is about the very galvanizing statement, making democracy work for all. But it's something that I'm grappling with, and maybe we can help each other to clarify, unpack, and see whether it makes sense. Questioning the concept of making democracy mainstream, the man, when we are silent about those who democracy is not working for. Isn't it now a disservice that we are not helping them? Why not being bold and aggressive and saying directly, making democracy work for the women, for the youth, for the poor, etc., for those who are disempowered, marginalized, instead of being silent.
There's a lady here.
Okay, so there's a...
Okay.
Thanks a lot for the wonderful presentation. My name is Besi from Malawi. I work for the Center for Empowering Democracy. You've defined accountability as to say answerability. So in societies that institutions are too weak, like we've mentioned about Chapter 9 institutions in the case of your country, and also in my country, there are constitutional institutions that are supposed to exercise oversight. And there comes a time where those institutions are the ones that are highly corrupt. You look at the helpers. In that case, like us, the civil society organizations, how best can we locate the social accountability work in situations like those where constitutional oversight institutions, they are the ones that capture the system, and they are also the ones that are as corrupt as they are. Thank you.
Which country, sir? Malawi. Right. And comments. Perhaps I'll start with the last one because I was a member of an oversight body, and I didn't perceive. She received such a vicious she had such a vicious Malawian ombudsman. But having said that, corruption or kept or being captured, that's where social accountability becomes an important answer. And I think that's how it closes the gap, where there's a gap. And it even exposes, because you're now out, social accountability is out. And if you have freedom of the media, it becomes a partner in social accountability. But even in the corroborate the information, find information, share information with others, and flood it. For example, in South Africa, we had some problems with inertia by our police on state capture and corruption. We had inertia by a lot of the state capture whistleblowers were investigated, and a docket handed over actually to the NTPA for them to be tried. It's co-authoring books about what you know, and flooding the market with the information on what you know. And the good thing about co-authoring is, if somebody wants to attack you, they'll have to attack 5 people that co-authored the book. And your public representatives accountable despite some of those institutions being corrupted or captured. It also allows you to expose capture, corruption, or clientelism. In a very interesting question. A lot of the people that are sitting here are my colleagues from the Tilma Foundation, and they are, who's a colleague about who's challenging, oh, it's a colleague here who's challenging, make democracy work for. So your colleagues that are sitting here at the front here are from an institution whose slogan, debate between, for example, feminism and humanism. I say we need a world that respects humanism, and feminists say we need a world and torture old people, or torture children, or torture foreigners on the grounds of xenophobia. We just need a world that embraces the humanity of every human being, hence humanism. We just have to give them what's in it for them. And there's some guy who wrote a poem, they called Within, where he's talking to the might not affect you, but in the end it will kill you. So he talks about 6 people who happen to be together tonight, and all of them have a lock, but none of them will use it. And in the end, the fire dies because all 6 of them that have a lock in their hand won't use it. He sees all of these white people. A rich person sees a poor person sees a rich person, and somebody who's just, you know, those mercenary people who never do anything. What's in it for them is keeping the flame of democracy alive, keeping peace alive. That if you allow somebody to suffer, if I believe as long as there's injustice, somewhere there can't be sustainable peace anywhere. But I don't know, because it's going to harm us. But if it's not working for them, it's actually not working for you, although it looks like it's working for you. Like the rich at the moment, they're realizing, the Bill Gates and everyone, about it looked like it was working for them, but ultimately it's not working for them. Jack Ma was on TV this morning just talking about that for the rich. Unless they're going to go and eat their money on planet Mars, which is not an immediate prospect. And duty bearers, yes, okay, there was a question about the duty bearers that are not tolerant of criticism. Yes, that is one of the problems of social accountability. It works better when duty bearers are tolerant. That was one of the things that I had mentioned when I was talking about a climate that is fertile for good social accountability. But I come from civil society, and we were at this, and in my early years I worked as a trade unionist, and I worked also at a university. I have found that social account anything good. I was with some people a while ago. We were just discussing the governing party, and some of them couldn't find a single thing. That all you say to your friend is to rubbish them. They cease to take you seriously. They just try to minimize contact with you. Because everyone wants to feel good about themselves. So perhaps, I think you start with, but my team eventually learned what was coming at the purported time. I met with a person and I said to them and told them everything that they're doing well. And then the next layer is, hey, Maharaman. It really would be nice if we were to improve this. And then you end again with something remarkable that they do. Because it's about confidence building. Roosevelt Moskanta has written a whole book about how do you make people in business and governments, and found that the high-performing teams is where the kind of feedback is confidence building. So I would say with civil society, it's okay to criticize government, but it shouldn't be criticism. All of them supported me. I mean, the average civil servant was 100% behind the Power Protector of South Africa. And even today, they're still behind that. Because the idea was, so that's what we might say, dear colleagues, is that, but I'm not justifying. I think there was a colleague who spoke though about, countries where a person or two are going to be shot to stop people from. I know, for example, that with Marikana here, there was a commission of inquiry to make sure that people are not just shot randomly just because they're protesting. So Marikana was investigated, and I know Zimbabwe is now asked more.
Thank you very much. I think I'll make a few people sad when I say this, but I'm afraid we will have to end our session there. Very enlightening discussion and a lot of, certainly a lot of pearls of wisdom, important one. And the issue of sunshine and sunlight being the best medicine. Certainly we have a lot of candles in this room. I think you mentioned that light is stronger than dark, and I think that's a very special analogy to keep in mind. I think ultimately also it's about the ways in which we can bolster the ecosystem or the social accountability system and its strength, and I think that's precisely one of the lessons that you've brought with you today, which I think is fantastic. Thank you very much, and I think before I do housekeeping, we'd like to just give you a final round of applause and say thank you very much for your time.
The one where is, do check the World Bank website, and they're advertising a conference right now on social accountability. I think it's going to take place either at the end of this month or the end of October. And they have a lot of models where a lot of the social accountability is in partnership with chosen public institutions. So it's not them and us all the time. Thank you.
Breakaway sessions. The session names are on the side over there on the board, so there's 4 breakaways. The spaces are limited, so the quicker you can get to them, the better, and then they're divided into 4 separate sessions. We'll have to take quite a quick tea, I'm afraid, but I'm sure you agree it was worth it, cutting into our tea session, and then we'll break into them. If you'd like to know where each of the sessions are, to be sure, the front desk where you registered will be able to let you know and take you to the right sessions. Okay, enjoy tea everyone, and see you again in the next plenary. So in fact the breakaways are after lunch. We have a plenary coming back in here after tea. So see you after tea in here and have a look at the plenaries.